Do you need more jelly beans?
I probably need more jelly beans.
You should do that. Chew into the mic.
Indeed.
Everyone loves that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Welcome to Stargatesing, a Stargate gazing podcast. I'm your host, Mary.
And I'm your other host, Kathy.
And each week we review an episode of Stargate alternating between SG-1 and Atlantis. Hello.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Fabulous.
How's fiddling?
Fiddling is good. Busy. Tiring. It's a lot of fiddling to do an hour-long session with only a half-hour break in between from like 10 a.m. to whenever I give up from fatigue in the evening.
That is a lot.
For 4 days, this being halfway through the third day.
Ugh.
But it's very fun. I've learned a lot of new Irish tunes, but I like to take lessons in some of the other styles too.
Cool.
And there's actually a lot of cool concerts. So it's not all me playing. I've watched a few concerts and stuff too. And
Nice.
Sometimes it's more like a seminar in technique and stuff. Not necessarily playing the whole time, but it's fun.
Good.
And
That's
I'm
good.
enjoying it. And right now there doesn't happen to be anything I want to do too badly. So thankfully I was able to squeeze in our recording since
Yay.
I couldn't do it when we originally planned because of my emergency union meeting.
Yay.
It's been a week.
Yes.
Between sessions, I've been trying to fit in Spanish class homework and then my actual work too.
Right.
I still had a ton of grading I needed to do because this was Thursday and Friday that this started. So yeah, it's been a lot.
It is a lot.
Indeed. But here we are.
We are here.
How's your week been?
It's been okay. Not crazy, which is good.
Indeed.
Yeah. I've just been this weekend between seeing friends and doing chores. I've been going through more of my family's photos and stuff, so.
You have other friends.
I know. We've talked about this before.
I know, and every time I'm still somehow surprised. I choose to ignore the fact that they exist, and then I forget that they exist, and then you remind me that they exist, and I'm always surprised yet again.
It's very goldfish of you.
Yep. That's what the whole ADHD thing is all about.
Yay! But this morning I found a report card for my great-grandmother from 1902.
Wow.
Which is wild. My family keeps too many things, but I'm
They
glad it's here.
have sure held on to many things. Wow.
Yes.
Impressive.
She did pretty well in arithmetic and language, not so good in history and drawing. Reading and writing was good.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah. And they scored nothing else.
History's hard. I was never good at memorizing dates. I could always remember the order things happened in, but memorizing specific dates was really hard for me.
Yeah, that's not my favorite part of it. That's the story.
I'm much better at stories
yeah.
and processes than I am at rote memorization.
Yeah.
Which is ironic since I make my students memorize all kinds of shit, but it's because I have to, not because I choose to. And they need to know it to be able to not kill their patients. So
Yes, that is important.
yeah. No one's going to die if you don't remember exactly what date certain things happened on centuries ago.
That's true. Unless you have some really weird evil villain who's quizzing you in order to not kill you.
It's possible. Or maybe if someone invents a time travel machine and you have to go back to a specific date in order to stop the end of the world. You need to like reset the timeline or whatever.
You'd need to pick the right date.
You would.
Yeah.
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 That would be important.
You don't want to show up during the middle of a war or something where you just get killed because you landed in the middle of the battlefield or something.
Right. You need to show up before the war starts.
Right. Or outside of the battlefield. Or
that. Or ideally both.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes. Know who just started their own war for seemingly no reason?
I was going to say, you know who else wishes they were outside of a battlefield?
Yes.
All the people in Atlantis are the ones that wish they were outside of the battlefield, and the people that seem to start a war for no reasons would be the Replicators.
Was
Kind
it?
of.
I mean, the SGC kind of started the war.
They did kind of assume that the Replicators were coming here, and then, they did their preemptive strike.
Yeah.
So really, it was Atlantis. I forgot about the preemptive strike thing first.
It's the whole title of the episode.
Yeah, I know. I don't remember these things. That's why it's always your job to say. what episode we're talking about.
I guess I will say that then.
Yes, please do.
This is Stargate Atlantis Season 3, final episode 20, First Strike. I guess they don't specify who makes that first strike.
Yeah,
but
no, this is true.
Yeah.
The episode does start with a recap, but I was slacking this week. And not so much slacking as in, but I had like a million things I was doing. And so I was watching the first 10 minutes on the episode while I was also trying to get a quick 10-minute walk-in before leaving for work. And I was like, oh, I'll just go back to this later and take my notes for the recap. And then I completely forgot. So as I was putting my transcript notes together, I was like, well, I'll just make some quick notes now based on the transcript. But even though the transcript almost always includes the full transcript of the flashback, this one doesn't. So I think my recap for today is excerpts from 3.05 Progeny, 310 Return Part 1, and 311 The Return Part 2.
I think we can just say this is going to involve the replicators was the gist, I feel like.
Yes.
Yeah. Good recap.
Thanks.
Go team.
Did my best with it.
Yeah. There's a lot going on.
I have had a lot going on this week, yes. Indeed. It took me like 3 separate watchings to get the entire episode in, and it was annoying and stupid. Because it was actually a good episode, and I wanted to just sit and watch the whole thing, but didn't manage to work it in this week. But at least I got it all eventually.
Yes, very good.
And the episode starts with the new Dr. Keller that we have seen Jules state in this show before, but not as the Doctor.
I'm shining. Captain A-OK.
I didn't think it was a very good introduction for her, because her introduction is telling Dr. Weir about how unfit she is to take over for Carson and the fact that she doesn't feel like she can run the department and she's very insecure. And I just thought that that's not the good way to start in a new job. Like,
hard agree. I felt the same way. Yeah.
It's okay to say that you're feeling a little overwhelmed or voice some concerns that you have, but just running up to your boss and saying, I can't do this, I'm too inept, essentially, is not great.
Were I unwed, I would take you in a manly fashion.
'Cause I'm pretty?
'Cause you're pretty.
Also, lady, you got picked to be on this super secret expedition. You probably have some skills.
Exactly. Yeah. So they basically just go back and forth a little bit. Dr. Weir has way more confidence in Keller than Keller has in herself. And Dr. Weir, for every time that Dr. Keller says that she isn't up for the job, she just tells her that, yeah, Dr. Beckett was saying the same thing for the first several months. It's overwhelming. I get it. You'll be fine. It's worth mentioning, too, that Dr. Keller's only in this position as interim, so it's not even permanent, although Dr. Weir seems pretty much hard indicating that it is going to be permanent because she has so much confidence in Dr. Keller. Dr. Weir does specify that she feels perfectly comfortable with her life in Keller's hands. And at the end of the day, that's really all it boils down to. Dr. Weir's obviously busy and heading into her office. So as Weir walks away, Keller asks her exactly how much time is she going to be in this role? A couple weeks? Longer? And Weir just says she'll keep her posted. So yeah, not the best intro for Dr. Keller.
Boo.
Boo indeed. In Dr. Weir's office, Rodney is there waiting, complaining about how he doesn't want to do performance evaluations. Can't someone else do it? But he's everyone's boss, so it really needs to be him. And she understands nobody likes to do it, but it's got to be done. Rodney feels like he doesn't know these people well enough and doesn't care, so that's not a good look for leadership either. Everyone is kind of showing their ineptitude in this opening. They're very good at certain aspects of their job, but none of them are good at leadership, really is what it boils down to. And then Shepard comes in for the same reason. I don't know why he bothers to hand Weir his tablet instead of just sending it to her, but
yeah, it's a little weird.
Yeah, he hands her his tablet and says that he's all done with his evaluations, and Weir notices that he's given absolutely everyone that he is in charge of either an excellent or above average. Rodney is excited to learn that he can do that, but Weir says, no, you can't do that. I'm sure there's things that everyone under you needs to work on, so maybe try being more honest rather than just nice about it. Chuck Nishan calls in to Dr. Weir to say the Apollo just came out of hyperspace, and they're ahead of schedule. Shepard thinks they're trying to show off, with it being a new ship and all.
Oh.
So Colonel Ellis, who is the one that is in charge of this new ship, beams himself down with a few other random people that I don't know that we ever get the name of. And he says they need to set up in the conference room immediately for a meeting. And it needs to be in private. Dun, dun, dun. Ooh. In the conference room, Ellis has some bad news. And that bad news is that the Daedalus has been making regular reconnaissance flybys of the Replicators' home planet, and it looks like they're building ships. So that's bad. Weir wants to know why she wasn't told about this sooner, and Ellis is basically like, well, that's why I'm telling you about it now. This is your debriefing on the situation. And not just some ships worth mentioning, there's a lot of ships that they are building.
That sounds exactly like the thinking of a machine to me.
So the replicators that they dismantled, evaporated, whatever we want to call it, that fell apart in pieces in Atlantis, that was not the end of them. Not only are there tons of ships, but it looks like they're just about done, and they're going to assume that the only place those ships would possibly be going is Atlantis, even though there is not actually any confirmation on that worth mentioning. Assuming that they are, in fact, going to be coming to Atlantis, again, despite that lack of actual intel, they're going to go ahead and make the preemptive strike that we were talking about before. And then credits. Credits!
After credits, Shepard and Weir are like, what? Really? You sure about that?
Yeah. It is good to have confirmation that there's an actual threat before starting a war. Just saying.
Yeah. But no, Ellis is like, yep, that's what we're doing.
But there are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't know.
Rodney asks how, and he's like, we've got a shit ton of nukes, and we're just gonna send them all.
Neat.
Yeah. To all of the places where ships are being built.
Great.
Shepard says that's not enough nukes.
Yeah, they've got, 6?
Yeah.
There's more than 6 ships, which is why he says that.
Yes, yeah, sorry.
They don't say how many. They just say that it's more than that.
Yeah. Rodney points out that the replicators are self-replicating, so maybe this won't matter, and it might just make things worse. And Ellis is like, but these replicators are different than the Milky Way replicators, and are they really? But
Not
he
really.
claims they are, that they're not built from the same...
They claim that when it's convenient.
Yeah.
But then when it's convenient for them to be the same, then they're the same.
They build themselves differently, apparently.
Yeah, supposedly.
Yeah.
Sure, whatever.
Yeah. But Ellis says, so 6 nukes is enough for now. Rodney's like, why don't we wait until Area 51 finishes this weapon that we've never heard of before, which is the planetary-wide anti-replicator weapon, so they could just kill all the replicators all at once.
Yeah.
Why set off some nukes when you can do a genocide?
Right.
Yeah. Ellis is like, yeah, that would be great, but the IOA doesn't like what they're seeing. They don't want these ships going live, I'll say.
Yeah. They don't want to wait to find out where the ships are going. They just want to destroy them all beforehand.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily that they'll go to Atlantis, but the replicators know Earth's location, and maybe they could get there.
Yeah,
so,
but still.
So they have their reasons. They've decided, the IOA, the SGC, they're all on board with this first strike.
Sigh.
Yep. And he's like, that's what we're going to do. And we need Rodney to go with us so he can start his inspections of their plan. And he immediately has Rodney beamed out of there. Mid-sentence.
Yep.
Ellis is like, cool, all right, good. This is the plan, we're done. And then he leaves.
What if the replicators were actually like, you know what, these humans suck, so let's go make ourselves some ships and find a new galaxy where there aren't any humans?
Yeah, we have no way of knowing what specifically their plans are.
Right. Just making assumptions and starting wars based on that.
Maybe they've decided it's in their best interest now to kill the Wraith. Who knows?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Could be, yeah. Maybe they were going to help us out. Not directly, but maybe they were also dealing with Wraith threat or some other common enemy.
Yeah.
Maybe they hated the Ori or whatever.
Yeah. Or maybe they're afraid of the Earth people and their destructive
just trying
ways.
to defend themselves.
Yeah.
You never know.
We don't know.
Yep. Could have all just been for defense with no plan of an actual attack anywhere.
Yeah. But the IOA don't care.
Nope. They sure don't. Here we are.
After Ellis leaves, Weir is like, can you believe this? And Shepard's like, yeah, it's awesome. And she is like, what? But Weir has concerns.
Understandable.
Yeah.
then she does go and find Ellis,
Come to think of it, what exactly is your way?
who's hanging out in the control room for whatever reason,
Yeah.
despite having Rodney beamed up on the ship. So Weir goes out to talk to him and tell him that the mission is a mistake, even though Ellis obviously does not agree with that. She thinks that it's going to be ineffectual to just go and send a bunch of nuclear weapons, not enough nuclear weapons, as Shepard pointed out before, to try to destroy all their ships, and that's going to be very dangerous, setting a precedent that's basically just going to be pissing them off. But the IOA doesn't think they can wait, and so this is their plan. And it's a great plan. What could go wrong?
Nothing's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
This episode ends in like 5 minutes.
It does, yeah. Everything's perfectly fine and everyone is safe.
Yep.
Weir thinks they should try to stall the replicators and open some negotiations, which, yeah, that sounds like a great plan.
Yeah.
But no, Ellis says that they are not a race of people. They're just a weapon, and keep that in mind, Weir. And it's time for some nuclear weapons against the weapon that is the replicator. Normally, Ellis says he'd be happy to go 12 rounds here, battling it out with her, basically, about who is wrong, which is a garbage thing to say.
Yep.
But he's got his orders, and so he couldn't change them, even if she was able to convince him it's the wrong thing to do.
Sigh.
Not a great scene.
No, not really. Up on the Apollo, Rodney and Zelenka have been checking things out, and things seem ready to go. The weapons are ready. Rodney's like, this is a bad idea, huh? And Zelenka's like, well, we could tell them the weapons aren't actually ready, or maybe we could actually make them not ready physically. But Rodney also is on the fence about this because he's like, the replicators are building a bunch of ships. He's seen them. And what if them delaying this causes the replicators to attack and kill them all? And they would have no way to defend themselves. And Zelenka's like, yeah, I agree. That would be bad. So Rodney's like, all right, we're just going to tell them we're ready to go. It is a tight position they are in. I mean,
It is.
The replicators could come and kill them all.
Yeah.
But
It's not a good plan, but,
No, but-
I think that Rodney and Zelenka are doing the right thing by
yeah.
going with it, because things could be a lot worse if they sabotaged it and then we had no way to
True.
defend anybody. It's basically their argument, not that they think that it's the right thing to attack,
Right.
but that if they destroyed these and it turned out that the ships did attack, then yeah, there would be no defense. So
Yeah, the concerns are real, I
Yeah.
guess is what I will say. Yeah.
yeah.
I love this plan. I'm excited to be a part of it. Let's do it.
On Atlantis, Shepard lets Weir know that Ellis has invited him to go along, and Weir says she knows already. His plan is to stay behind in a cloaked puddle jumper after the warhead's launched to see how it goes. And Weir's like, I also already know that. It's like I'm not the head of this whole place. Shepard mentions he heard that she contacted Woolsey and O'Neill with no avail. They will not call off this mission. And Shepard's like, I know you think we're doing the wrong thing. And Weir is like, whatever, good luck. This is happening regardless. She's unhappy about it, but there's nothing she can do.
Back over with Rodney and Zelenka. Rodney lets Ellis know that the warheads are armed. I guess they're calling this whole big rocket thing the Horizon. And so Ellis says that they're going to go ahead and open the bomb bay doors.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Rodney is confused by this because they're still in hyperspace, but Ellis says that they're going to be dropping out really close to the planet, so he wants to be able to drop them immediately, which Rodney seems to think is rather insane, but he's going to go ahead and do as Ellis says. So he says they are ready to launch on his command. But he also asks if Ellis is really sure about this. But Ellis says, yeah, there's no time to talk about that right now. So the technician that is on the bridge gives the countdown for when they are going to drop out of space. They drop out, they launch the bombs, and then there's a bunch of exploding things. Bunch of clouds.
It's the only way to be sure.
Rodney confirms that all 6 warheads have detonated, and Shepard launches so that he can keep an eye on what's going on. And then they jump back into hyperspace and head back to Atlantis.
Good times.
Sometime later, in the Atlantis debriefing room, Zelenka and Rodney are there, talking about the fact that there was so much radiation interference that they couldn't actually really get an accurate estimate of how strong the explosions ended up being. And they can't confirm whether or not the targets were hit. But Maybe? Probably?
Maybe.
Sometime later in the control room, Shepard is back, and Weir says that she hears congratulations are in order. So I guess that means everything was at least seeming successful from Shepard's perspective. He says that they did get all the ships, at least as far as he could tell. And he says that space battles are always more exciting on TV than in real life. Technician, though, calls over to Dr. Weir, and something just came into geosynchronous orbit above the city, so that's not great. They're going to have the Apollo go and check it out.
So the object itself just kind of looks like a round satellite thing, and it has a Stargate in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But so the Apollo is there to check it out.
Yeah. Not your typical space gate, which is just a giant gate in space. This is just a smaller gate being held in place by a thing.
A thing, yes. Yeah. Some sort of machine, chip, whatever.
Like a tube, mechanical tube.
That wizard came from the moon.
Yeah. Ellis is like, it's a satellite, but it's also a Stargate. And they're like, what could that do? And we're like, I don't know. And then the Stargate turns on before they have time to think about it any further, which is alarming for all of them. And then a red beam comes through the Stargate. It hits the Apollo immediately, but then the satellite turns and the red beam aims for Atlantis. We see it cutting through the ocean as it heads towards the city.
It's good that they give us plenty of build-up towards that so that they have time to get the shields up.
Yes. The effects in this episode were really, I thought were pretty good. So
they were. I agree.
This is a nice looking episode.
Yeah.
They're like, this sustained beam is coming for us. Rodney says it's bad for a dozen reasons. The Apollo fires at the satellite, but it seems to have some kind of shielding.
Oh, how convenient.
Ellis demands Rodney give him options for dealing with this situation, and Rodney's like, I need a few minutes. They're like, but this thing, and Rodney's like, yeah, we got the shield and it seems fine, so give me a sec.
Approximately 5 minutes later, we get a view of the city still being fired upon, but the shields are still holding. Everyone is in Weir's office, and by everyone, that means Shepard, Weir, and Ellis are there. Rodney comes in and says that they're in trouble. Shepard asks, it took you 5 minutes to figure that out? You're slipping. Rodney says that the satellite is basically a stripped down ship. It's a hyperdrive engine and some shields, and then obviously the gate. Once the wormhole was established, though, that means that they can't dial their gate out because it's too close to the planet, that other gate. So as long as that's open, they can't open their gate. And so they can just keep firing for a while here. But everything's fine, because there's that 38-minute cycle that always shuts down a gate, even though many times we've seen that that's not the case. And Rodney actually mentions that he doesn't think it's going to shut down after 38 minutes. Ellis indignantly asks, but what about the fact it's supposed to be impossible, even though, again, we've seen many times that it has been held open for longer than that.
He hasn't read all the SG-1 briefings.
Right? Yeah, because Rodney does mention the SGC encounter with the whole black hole thing where the beam did not shut down. And so a Stargate can remain active indefinitely if it has enough of a power source, like a black hole or unlimited ZPMs. So, fair assumption the replicators are behind them because they've got all kinds of energy sources at their disposal.
Yeah.
Can they contact the dialing planet, maybe? Despite this thing firing a constant beam at them? Probably. They're going to give it a try to make radio contact with the firing planet for confirmation of who is on the other end and what the hell's going on.
Hello? Hello? Yes?
I like when Rodney talks about how he hopes whatever the problem is, that is actually the problem, because if there were more problems, it would be so much worse. It's a thing he's expressed more than once, and I enjoy it when he does.
Indeed.
Okay, and then they've set up the radio.
Yeah.
Yeah. And oh my god, there's video too, and look who's on the other end. It is old friend Oberoth.
Shocking.
I really hate that man.
Yes. Oh, it is the Replicators. Weir says she's surprised to see him, and Oberoth is like, we exist within our collective, so I can be replicated many times. Weir tells him to disable the weapon immediately. Oberoth says impossible. Weir says they had no choice but to attack the replicators because they were building warships and they needed to be neutralized. So Oberoth says, so do you now. Ho ho, look at this back and forth. Weir threatens to launch an all-out attack. And Oberoth is like, well, you haven't already. Why didn't you just do it then? And Weir's like, well, we weren't trying to kill all of you. They really want to kill all of them.
No, they really were. Yeah.
Yeah. We would like to work out an understanding. We'd like peace to exist. But we're not going to let you just kill us. So maybe stop the weapon. Weir reminds him they've met several times in battle, and every time the Atlantis folks have been victorious. Then Rodney warns her the replicators are trying to upload a virus into Atlantis' systems, so she shuts down the communication and says that went well. Weir asks what happens if the gate doesn't shut down at the end of 38 minutes. Rodney tells her they have 29 hours before the shield fails. So it's not that long. Not great.
Nope. Not great at all.
No.
Later, the beam is still firing down on the city. The 38-minute window is past, and that beam is still going, of course. Rodney says, well, it was worth a shot, but now they're going to need another plan. Their plan being that they were going to try to dial their gate out, and that's not working.
Womp womp.
In the briefing room, Ellis is working with a bunch of people, I guess, from his ship, and Shepard comes in and wants a minute. So Ellis tells everyone to leave because he wants to talk in private. Shepard says they need to head back to the Replicator planet. Ellis is skeptical, but Shepard is suggesting that they try to neutralize what's going on at the source. But I guess the Apollo is not in great shape because it did get kind of skimmed before by the beam. It had its shields up, so it wasn't damaged too much, but it did take out a lot of energy, and so there needs to be some replenishing and repairs going on before they can go back to the Replicator planet. Shepard says they need to do something, but right now there really is not anything that they can do. Shepard is feeling a bit guilty and like they're responsible for this, and Ellis defensively asks, is it because Dr. Weir said so? Ugh. Ellis is not a great character.
Yeah, not super fond of him so far, although Caldwell was pretty much a dick too, so...
True, and he got over it.
Yeah.
I've been getting my ass chewed.
Ellis basically goes on a rant about how Dr. Weir's not great, she's done a fine enough job, but really it should be Shepard that's in charge here, not Dr. Weir.
That's a step up from Caldwell, who's like, I should be in charge.
Yes, this is true. This is true. But Ellis says, well... give us some credit. Because of us, the Earth won't have to deal with the armada of replicator ships. So yeah, they're just going to lose Atlantis, and then the replicators can rebuild and then go to Earth. But Ellis doesn't add all that part. That's just what I was thinking when he's making it sound like they saved Earth. No, you just delayed it.
Yeah. I did also appreciate that Shepard holds the same attitude about being the man as O'Neill.
Yes. Agreed. He says he didn't want to be the man because he'd have no one to rage against.
Exactly. It felt very Jack in that moment.
It did.
In Weir's office, Weir is complaining pretty rightly, I think, to Taylor about her being completely left out of all of these plans by the IOA and the SGC.
She is not wrong in these complaints.
No. She says that they're trying to undermine her because the military doesn't like that a civilian and a woman is in charge.
We can discuss sexism and survival situations when I get back.
Taylor's being Taylor, so she's like, surely General O'Neill doesn't agree with that. And the IOA, they've been on your side. Weir says, yeah, maybe when things are going well, but as soon as things are problematic, gotta get that military in there, take control of everything. Weir says that their current situation could have easily been avoided, but they don't hold her opinions in high esteem, so they just didn't listen and went forward anyway, and look where we are. And if we get out of this, I might need to step down. And Taylor's like, maybe take a little bit of time, think about this. But before they can continue this conversation, Rodney says he's got something, so they head out to the control room to see what that is. He starts to explain what ideas he's come up with, but Ellis doesn't want a history lesson, so shuts him down and tells him to just tell him the plan without any other information. So Rodney says they submerged the city. Like when they found it.
Dun, dun, dun.
Things have changed since Atlantis came up a few years ago from the bottom of the ocean, and they think that they have enough active systems and repaired systems that they could feasibly do this again, which they hadn't been able to do after the first time. And they think maybe it'll buy them more time with the shields because the beam may be dissipated by the ocean a bit.
It makes sense in theory.
Yeah. That's basically what happened when the Atlantis people submerged the city to begin with when the Wraith were attacking. They don't know how much this will actually help, though, because obviously replicator weapons different from Wraith weapons and whatever other variables there might be. But maybe they should still try. And Ellis is like, get it done. And Rodney's like, you're not in charge of me.
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
He just laughingly says, it's not your call.
Yeah. So Weir asks, what is the worst case scenario? Rodney says, the worst case scenario is they were wrong about their numbers, use a ton of power, the city doesn't submerge. And he says, as much as he hates to say it, Zelenka isn't infallible. So his Zelenka insults have gotten nicer.
Yeah. I liked Zelenka's look that he gave him. Basically, like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So Weir gives them the go-ahead, though, because they might as well try. Worth the risk, she says. Rodney says, give him an hour. Break.
I liked that Rodney was only going to listen to what Dr. Weir said and not necessarily what Ellis was telling him to do.
That was good.
So next, it's morning. Just the very beginning of morning, but the beam is still going, and so that's bad. Apparently it's been an hour since that meeting happened, and Rodney says that they are ready. Rodney and Zelenka have a bit of going back and forth, which is just silly because they're not even saying complete sentences. They just keep saying, you got to do the thing. Oh, great. And now we're ready. It was silly and pointless. I'm guessing they were probably just once again trying to kill time, but it was still amusing.
Yeah.
So Weir goes on the intercom and tells everybody that it is time to attempt submerging the city. And from what she understands, it could get a little bumpy. So everybody get to a safe area. And they begin.
Dive, dive, dive.
It is a really cool effect here, watching the city submerge again and watching the ocean just kind of come up around the city, but not obviously flooding the city because the shields are still up.
Yeah.
So we get to watch that for a bit. I thought it was some pretty cool effect. And then eventually they make it down to the bottom. There's a pretty big thunk, and everybody loses their balance a bit once they actually reach the very bottom. The beam is still not looking so great, and when Rodney takes a second to figure out exactly how much damage it's still doing, it's not looking good. The beam is slightly dissipated, but not having nearly the same impact of dissipating that energy as it did on the Wraith weapons, so they really only bought themselves a couple extra hours. Not the days to weeks or more that he was hoping for. 10 hours, to be exact. Or 9, Zelenka says. So, Weir asks what the plan is, but Rodney says that was the plan.
Oh, dear.
So, that's not great.
Nope. Elsewhere on Atlantis, Ronan is hanging out with Shepard and Taylor, telling him he needs to learn some science so he can be more useful in these types of situations.
Everyone needs to learn some science, just basic science.
That's true. But Shepard's like, you've got a bunch of skills that are very useful. Some of us have some skills, some of us have others. He tries to compare them to the Fantastic Four. They have no idea what that is. I'm not even sure they know what a comic book is. He calls Taylor the Invisible Woman, and she says she's not invisible. And he referred to himself as Mr. Fantastic, and Taylor's like, well, why are you Mr. Fantastic? And Shepard's like, he was the leader, and I'm the leader. And it was a silly scene.
It was, and it got me to thinking who actually would be who.
I don't know enough about the Fantastic Four to help with that.
Oh, well, that's not fun then. But yeah, he says that he would be Mr. Fantastic, Ronan would be the Thing, Rodney would be the Human Torch, and Taylor would be the Invisible Woman. I don't know that I would say Rodney's the Human Torch, because I thought that guy, I don't know, like, I'm not hugely versed with them, but that guy wasn't smart, at least in the portrayals that I have seen. I think that Taylor should actually be Ms. Fantastic. And then Rodney and Shepard can battle it out for who gets to be the Human Torch versus the invisible person, in my opinion.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? The Thing?
The Thing, he's like a giant, strong man made of rock.
So Ronan.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
It's clobbering time.
Giant strong man. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
In Rodney's lab, Shepard comes in and asks why Rodney and Zelenka aren't bickering. And it's because Zelenka has run out of bad ideas, according to Rodney anyway. And Zelenka says he wants to put in for a transfer if they don't die in all of this. They continue to banter for a while, and it is amusing. Shepard asks why they don't make out and get it over with. They've run a whole bunch of scenarios. Everything ends in failure. There is nowhere on the face of the planet, he says, that the beam won't be able to get to them. Then Rodney and Shepard exchange a look, because there was mention of on the face of this planet. But what if? The old girl might not be too banged up after all, maybe? Replicators did fix a lot of damage. We don't really know what they're talking about, but they're both getting very optimistic and excited as they're talking about maybe bringing it with us or whatever. Zelenka has no idea what they're talking about, and they don't make it clear to us what they're talking about, although I knew exactly what they were talking about because I've seen this before.
Whoa, dude, spoiler alert!
Yeah. And then we see the drilling platform that we had such fun in a few episodes ago.
Mm-hmm.
The folks there have continued to work on drilling into the planet core to get some energy out of there. Rodney is over the radio talking to Coleman, who we saw in the last episode with the platform, to ask how much power they'll be able to get, enough power to do whatever they need to do. Coleman says she can get them 90% of the way there. And Rodney's like, damn it, not enough. There goes the plan. Shepard asks, but what about the ZPM makes up the difference, maybe? And Rodney's like, it's powering the shield, so no. So Shepard says, what if it didn't have to? Somehow we could take the strain off momentarily of the shield so we could take him down and then use that power. And Rodney's like, what the hell are you talking about? What do you want to do? Whatever this plan is, they immediately have implemented it because next they are doing the thing. They're going to go grab an asteroid-like chunk from a former moon of this planet and drag it into the beam, basically, using F302s. And then we see that happening. We see Lorne and a team of others in 302s headed towards an asteroid field. The ships clamp on to one of them and nudge it in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be a slow going. It's going to be a few hours for it to get there. Yeah. And so this plan is now underway. Whatever the final plan is, they still haven't told us. But
yep,
they're working on it.
Yeah. Sometime later in the control room, Weir and Shepard come in. Weir asks if it's still working. And yep, Rodney says it's slow going, but they're bringing it towards the planet. And they do mention that it's going to get there before a cutoff time. They're still talking vaguely about whether or not they can actually do this, but they don't specify what this is. So Weir decides that it is time to make an announcement to everybody again. And
Chief of the watch, sound the dive alarm. Pass the word along to 1MC.
So you get on the intercom and says that the reality is that there is nowhere to hide on this planet. And so Rodney and Shepard have come up with an ingenious way to escape the satellite altogether. In the next few hours, they're going to fire the city's star drive and head into space. Atlantis is leaving the planet.
Oh my God.
We get a brief scene of the shield fluctuating a little bit under the beam, and then we are back in Dr. Weir's office. Ellis wants to come in and talk to her. He has had all non-essential personnel beam back up to the Apollo, and Ellis asks if they have located a new home for themselves yet. Apparently Rodney has found a planet that is not populated and habitable with a good ocean, so seems optimistic. And Shepard, importantly, did not want to try to land on solid ground, which is understandable.
Yeah.
So they wanted a nice big ocean to be able to touch down in. Ellis says he knows that Dr. Weir doesn't like him very much, and he doesn't like her either. Great.
Yeah.
But he does apologize if he's crossed any kind of a line with regards to taking over and bossing people around. He's used to making all the calls, but he doesn't want Weir to think that he doesn't respect her, because he does. And Weir thanks him for that. And he heads out and wishes them luck.
Shepard and Rodney are headed towards the chair room, just talking about their plan as they go. Shepard says, we're going to wreck that drilling platform, aren't we? And Rodney's like, yes, obviously. But it'll be okay, I'm sure.
Surely so.
It's not like they were going to, I don't know. They don't have time to take it with them anyway. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
They get into the chair room. Shepard asks about Lorne. Rodney says he's making good time. He's going to be here in the next 20 minutes. So it's basically game time. Shepard says that this is easier than flying a V-22 Osprey because he had to use his hands and feet to fly that. And this one, he just has to think fly. So it should be fine.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
Yeah. So Shepard gets in the chair. Rodney says he's going to head up to the control room and they'll get this plan going. Woohoo! That was very exciting.
Mm-hmm. Next, we see Lorne. He's still out in his 302, still pulling his little asteroid around.
Oh my god, Emma pulled you off.
And tells Rodney over the radio that they're getting close and asks if they are ready. Rodney asks Zelenka what the situation is. Zelenka says that they're a go. All non-essential systems are shut down and they are as ready as they'll ever be. Rodney calls down to Shepard. Shepard is also as ready as he'll ever be. So Rodney says to make sure that, I'm assuming that the asteroid is moving as slow as possible.
I think so.
Yeah. Lorne asks, shouldn't we just maybe lob it into the satellite? But no, because they would easily be able to just navigate it back into position. I guess it wouldn't destroy it. It does have shields on it after all, I suppose.
Yeah.
So they move into the beam and it seems to work. The asteroid, I guess, I'm going to assume it's moving so slowly that that's why it doesn't just like pass right out of the beam with the momentum that it had moving forward.
I was wondering that, like, doesn't it just
because
move it
not
itself?
Like they didn't do anything to make it decelerate to stay in place, or they detached from it too. So it's not like they can nudge it around anymore. But here we are. It's working.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's it. They start working on it. And the city lifts up off of the floor. The beam is still coming down because it hasn't been completely blocked yet at this point. The city keeps moving up towards the surface. The beam shuts off just about as they're nearing the surface. And it's time to activate the star drive. But things suddenly don't really go as well anymore. The city is just not taking off. It is at the surface, but it is not lifting off of the surface of the ocean like it should. Rodney says that they're not flying high enough and it seems to be stalling out. Shepard opens his eyes and tells Rodney that it's just not working. Rodney wants to know what he's doing wrong. Shepard says it's not his fault. He just doesn't have enough power. So they have a bit of back and forth about what to do. There isn't any more power. Weir tells them, lower the shields. They both think that she's insane, but she's got a point. They don't need the shields right now because the beam isn't coming down. And even though they obviously can't go into the vacuum of space without the shields, if they turn it off now, turn it back on at 18,000 feet, they should have enough thrust going at that point that they'll be able to get to whatever escape velocity they're aiming for. Hopefully. They just need a boost to get them started, right? Rodney says it might work.
Oh.
So that's what they do.
Yep.
And it works.
Yay!
They start flying. Yeah. And the ship continues, rising up into the air. We're watching out the window in awe. So as everybody is watching in awe as the city lifts off from the ocean and starts heading up into space, the asteroid out in space breaks apart. That's not good. The beam apparently was enough to break it. The beam comes down, and even though they are in the process of raising the shields back up, because they've apparently reached about 18,000 feet, they don't have them closed in time. So the beam hits the control tower basically dead on, and there's a giant explosion. Dr. Weir, who was standing at the window, gets blown back across the control room. Ronan was also there with her, and he's not really doing much better. There's broken glass everywhere and exploding things. And the shield does manage to close just after that, so it does continue blocking the beam after that, but Not after a whole shit ton of damage has already been done. Taylor's also been taken out there, although she's not doing quite as bad as Weir and Ronan are. Shepard, meanwhile, though, probably for the best, doesn't have any idea what's going on there, so he continues to take them up and out into hyperspace.
Woo woo!
Yeah. And he and the two people with him are all cheering and looking happy. Shepard tries to radio to Rodney and Dr. Weir when the only response back over the radio is Chucknician calling for a medical team to the control room. So Shepard leaves the chair, which seemed like a very bad idea to me, and runs to the control room.
And finds disaster and chaos.
Indeed.
He runs into Dr. Keller, who is working on Weir, and she tells him what happened, basically.
And don't ride in anything with a Capacin 38 engine, they fall right out of the sky.
Also, we get to see that she is a competent person because she then barks orders at somebody who is helping someone who is minimally injured to go find somebody with more injuries to deal with.
That guy's bad at triage.
Yeah. Shepard asks if Weir's going to be okay, and Keller says she does not know. Her pupils are sluggish, and she took a huge fall, so she's got to go work on her. So she heads out of there with Weir. Shepard continues up to the top of the control room, where Ronan has an enormous shard of glass sticking out of his chest.
'Tis but a scratch.
I was thinking to myself, don't pull it
I know.
Thankfully, they didn't.
No, Ronan says he's had worse, so he's fine.
You lie.
I know.
This is a giant shard of glass poking either into his lung or maybe his heart or aorta or something.
Yeah. So Shepard orders someone to take him to the infirmary.
Yeah.
Oh, Ronan. You don't need to be a tough guy when you have medical help right there.
Right.
Shepard checks in on the rest of the team, Rodney and Taylor, and...
Yeah. They're not looking so great.
No, but Rodney says he's okay, all things considered.
Yeah. They've both got a lot of cuts all over their faces, but they're standing and mostly functional.
Yeah. The damage to the city itself was minimal, he says. He got the shield up pretty quickly. But, you know, obviously the people took a hit there.
Indeed.
And then alarms start blaring, and Rodney's like, what the hell now? Atlantis drops out of hyperspace. Oops. That's not good. Taylor's like, are we there yet? And Rodney says, nope, it should have taken another few hours. Hyperdrive shut down. So Shepard tells him, get it back up. And he's like, I don't know what's wrong. I can't do that. They also don't know where they are. They're in the middle of nowhere. Rodney says there's no planets, no moons, no stargates. They also have very little power left.
Great.
24 hours, Rodney says. And then they have no shield. And then they all die.
Yep.
They can't use the Stargate because they don't know where they are. Lost in space.
Yeah, needs to be near a planet for that to work.
Yep. And that is how season 3 ended.
That is how season 3 ended, and that's why we couldn't just end it like
No! What happens? They just died out in space.
That's it. They just ended the whole series.
Yep, there was nothing after this.
Nope. Nothing. Kathy, did you like the episode?
I did like the episode. I thought it was very exciting. I thought, as I said, the effects were pretty good. Like, there were some really pretty shots, too. Atlantis looked really pretty with the red beam coming down on it.
It did. It looked really cool.
Yeah. So it was really nice looking. Their initial reason for the first strike wasn't my favorite thing, but trying to figure out how to save themselves after that was all very interesting. Hopefully the replicators all die soon because I do hate them so much. But yeah, and I don't love a cliffhanger because then you have to wait, but it's okay. We only have to wait a week.
Yay.
Yeah. So I don't know. Solid episode. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, no, I agree. It was a good episode. I enjoyed it. It was, a little annoying in the beginning because it reminded me a little bit too much of current events going into places where you don't necessarily have the best reason to be striking, but because there isn't any direct indicator of imminent threat like there should be. But besides that, it was an exciting episode. It was a very good episode. Like we said before, it was a pretty episode too. So I enjoyed it a lot. And it was also a nice change of pace from how much I hated the last episode of SG-1 because I was going into this just feeling so disappointed by that I was like, well, can this really be that much better? But, it was. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Will we enjoy the next one?
Hopefully, it is Season 4, Episode 1 of Stargate Atlantis, Adrift. Part 2 of this 3-part series. With a damaged ZPM and diminished hope of survival, the Atlantis team finds themselves stranded in the middle of empty space with hardly any time before they run out of power completely. Yeah, we already know that. Why are they telling us this again? Telling us this again.
In case it's been 3 months since you watched it because you had to wait a whole summer. I don't know.
Dr. McKay is challenged to the max as he tries to find a way to save Atlantis from its doom. Meanwhile, Dr. Keller races to treat Weir's increasing head injuries, but the only answer she can come up with could have grave results for everyone on board.
You don't hear to the max very often these days.
You know what? Sure don't. And even if this was written in 2007 when this came out, it was also not a thing that people were saying in 2007. Weird choice there. Yeah. That was IMDb. Over at TVDB. Much more brief. Floating in deep space with the city's protective shield failing, the team must do all they can to keep Atlantis alive. A radical injury threatens Dr. Weir's life.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that's good. Yeah. Sounds good.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
All right.
Thank you so much for listening to Stargatesing with Kathy and Mary. Our fully listener-supported program couldn't be done without you. Show your support by telling everyone you know how awesome this show is. Find us at stargatesing.space. Reach us by email, stargatesing@gmail.com. Find us on social media at Blue Sky. Get some merch, tinyurl/stargatesing. And finally, show your financial support at patreon.com/stargatesing. Thank you for traveling through the gate with us. Catch you next time on Stargatesing with Kathy and Mary.
I'm Kathy.
I'm Mary.
And you've been listening to Stargatesing. The end.
The end.
Let's read my teacher remarks from my 5th grade report card. Catherine is a diligent worker with a very positive academic attitude. She is a cooperative student who works well independently and does her share when working in group situations.